questions your website probably should answer, but probably doesn't. I gave this talk this morning at 9 o'clock. No, correction, 10 o'clock, and it's now 5 o'clock here. It's been a fun day. Lots going on, lots of exciting stuff. So, without any further ado, let's get right to it. We're coming to this, me presenting my colleagues who helped me prepare the presentation and the thoughts off the back of 20 years of working on websites, on copy, on content, website copy. We've done a lot of work for a lot of companies over that time. So it's based in that. It's based in our experience and analysis of websites that we see. And we've done a number of reports where we've looked at hundreds and hundreds of websites. Obviously, we've worked on many and pitched more. And also well attested third-party research. If any of this resonates with you, attracts your interest, if you'd like to talk to me, drop me an email, matthew@articulatemarketing.com, or book a marketing website strategy session. We'll talk about websites and how to make them more engaging, more effective. articulatemarketing.com/meet is my calendar. You can book a chat with me. No BS, no hard sell, just an opportunity to talk. Okay, so we're going to look at some of the things that you need to look at on your website right now to make sure it is saying what it should be saying, why that doesn't always happen, some of the key things about copywriting for websites and how to get the words on the screen to say what you need them to say, and a prioritization framework of quick wins, and then sort of deeper dives at the end. I'm going to have a hard stop at past. I have another call that I have to get onto. So today, hopefully I'm not going to overrun, but as usual, I'll talk a lot and improvise a bit. So let's start with the auditing process. There are 5 questions that every website visitor who is meaningful and interesting to you, and probably also the AI bots and spiders and SEO bots and spiders, are going to be asking, whether they are explicit questions on a checklist like this, or more likely whether they're intuitive or sort of subconscious needs. What do you do? Is it for me? Do you know my sector, my problems, my challenges? Why should I believe you or trust you? You know, are you a reliable source? How much does it cost, or what is required of me? Where next? What's the next best step for me right now? And remember, not everybody is ready to click on the talk to sales, book a demo, having a sort of a deep engagement. So there are next steps that are intermediary. Here's a test, all right? Open up your website page, homepage, set a timer for 10 seconds, which is significantly longer than most people will give you on a first visit. By the way, Microsoft research says that people typically make a first impression of a website in under a second. And we're very good as human beings of making these heuristic snap judgments. So give yourself a test. In 10 seconds, can you answer these 5 questions on your homepage? And then get a friendly, intelligent person who is not in your business, who doesn't have prior knowledge, sort of friends, family, loved ones, and ask them to do the same thing. Can they, in 10 seconds, look at the page and then answer these questions? Can be quite a shocking exercise, and it's free. It doesn't require a sort of panel of 100, usability test subjects or paid research or one-way mirrors or anything like that. Here are the patterns that we usually find, and we look at a lot of website pages. First of all, typically, the homepage banner, the bit that's really at the top of the page, that's going to get most of the eyeballs on a homepage, talks a lot about sort of positioning, rather grandiose messaging, values, not necessarily what you do for the visitor. Okay. Very often the ideal customer is implied but never stated, which makes it harder for people to go, that's me, or that's like me. There is social proof, but often it's buried at the end of the page, or it's linked off in case study pages or something like that, so that it's harder for people to go, yeah, these people, they've done it for people like my business. They have generic CTAs. Get in touch. Let's talk. Oh, look, this is the challenge with doing live webinars. My dog wants to come in. I've got to go and let him in, otherwise he'll howl. All right, come on, fella. Here you go. So regular watchers will be familiar with my old boy there, Winston. Anyway, if you haven't met him, there he is. Yeah, okay. And this is probably an area where Articulate's guilty. We have Let's Talk currently, but it's evolving. And navigation buries important pages or omits them completely, hello pricing pages. The most egregious thing that we see is home pages that have carousels on them, so you don't even get that kind of core message. It's like you look at it and it's about an event, and then the thing comes past, and it's like a little video of something, and something else comes along, and you know, what is this website about? It's about some stuff and on this sort of animation. So I'm here to tell you, people, carousels are never the answer. Right? Just don't do it. Okay. So why does the important stuff get buried? Fundamentally, websites are built at the instruction of people who know the business very well, or built by the people who know the business very well, so they're often marking their own exam papers. Often the audience for people who build websites like us is we try to be working for our clients' clients. But the highest paid person's opinion counts quite a lot, and who writes the checks gets to say what has to go on the homepage. And sometimes it's just easier to capitulate and go, all right, we'll put a carousel with, you know, these 4 things on it, or we'll write something pious and exciting that sounds like good branding but doesn't really actually tell you. So these are the sort of psychological factors, and my colleague Joanna did a webinar a couple of years ago about the psychological obstacles to the webinar of your to the website of your dreams, and it's worth watching. Okay, so more practically, we know how people use websites, right? This is well understood from research by people like the Norman Nielsen Group, and also, you know, we run Hotjar and Lucky Orange on our client websites, and we can see what people are clicking on, how they're scrolling, how they move through a site, how many pages they look at. So there's real data about this. The vast majority of people visit a website, they don't scroll, or if they do scroll, they don't scroll very far, and 5 to 10% of people reach the bottom of the homepage scrolling, right? They tend to be gravitated up here, and the sort of the first above the scroll 100%, otherwise, you know, they're not seeing anything. Maybe the next scroll down is 50% enough, and it just tapers off very rapidly. So if you have filled your above the scroll homepage with a beautiful image and some very vague sort of brand messaging or something like that, and a generic learn more, you've just squandered the biggest, best opportunity you have for people to take action and understand who you are and answer the questions that they're coming with. And it's really frustrating when we see people, okay, so if carousels are my number 1 enemy, the next enemy is, you know, we've got a beautiful animation. We had Steven Spielberg film happy, shiny office people, some big, fancy glass office buildings, and put that up on the page, and we're going to do this stuff. And then there's some very hard to read, low contrast text sort of interposed on top of it. And that's just sort of dazzle. So make sure that above the scroll on the homepage is working for you, and it's answering the questions: what you do, who you do it for, why you're different, one clear next step. Next thing is the information hierarchy problem, right? What you want to communicate to people isn't necessarily what they want to hear in the order they want to hear it. And the most obvious example is, you know, does this solve my problem, and how much does it cost? You might be going, oh, you know, our vision is a world without this, or, you know, something, and here's a shiny office picture. And or you lead with a lot of features or product information, or lots of awards and accreditations and sort of messaging about the business, which, you know, is important to you for competitive positioning and differentiation, but isn't answering the essential questions that visitors have when they want to come to a website and make a commercial decision. So here are the things that people typically want in the order that they want it. What problems does this solve? What's it going to do for me? What's the outcome or outcomes I'm going to get from it? How do I know it's going to do that? And what do I do next? And very often, what do I do next is an interesting thing. Most websites have at best a contact us page and form. And that has a terrible, terrible conversion rate because most people coming to websites aren't ready to either be ignored by filling in a form or have a sales conversation. So typically one of the two outcomes of filling in a contact form. You need to have some sort of intermediate step. I heard this described very delightfully by a client of ours yesterday as take me out for dinner before we get married, right? How do we do something that shows the value of this? Maybe it's a self-service demo, maybe it's something like our marketing strategy session that I offered earlier, something that's has value and is not a lifelong commitment or a sales conversation, but allows me to understand what I get. So there's a nice sort of bottom of funnel next step. Okay, so there are some quick win structural improvements that you can make that cost nothing. You don't need a new website, you don't need a rebrand, you don't need anything. You can probably go and do these things on your existing homepage in an hour or two if you know what you're doing. So rewrite the hero section around the problem that you solve, not who you are or not your core features. Problem that you solve, benefits that you deliver. Add somewhere or surface somewhere or make clear, we help these kinds of people do this kind of thing, right? So the positioning, what you do for whom. Put your best case study or testimonial that evidences both your competency and we do it for these kinds of companies higher up, as close to the top of the fold as you can. Replace generic CTAs with specific ones. So see how we do it, get a demo, marketing strategy session beats, get in touch, let's talk. And I know I'm sitting in a glass house throwing stones on that, but our CTAs are changing shortly. And lastly, audit the navigation. Can you make it simpler? Can you make sure that the most important pages are the most visible? Can you strip out extra unnecessary navigation from the menu so that you're making it very clear that you're answering next questions? Okay. So assuming you've got the right structure and you've sort of organized the information flow on the website, and obviously there are deeper, more complex answers to all of those things, but I'm trying to give you stuff you can do right now. The next thing is to focus on copy, the words. And while design is critical and the way that the website is coded is critical for things like SEO, load speed, standards compliance, accessibility, and all of those things that are behind the design and a lot of website agencies sadly don't pay attention to, fundamentally the words are the things that go into your visitors' brains. And you need to be writing words that help you communicate the right things in the right order to the right people. People don't read websites like they read novels. And while this was true 20 years ago or more when Norman Nielsen Group first published How People Read on the web, it is even more so now. We're very, very sophisticated consumers of online information. We're very good at scanning. We're very good at scrolling past information that we're not interested in and picking out highlights. We're highly trained now by online media to skip and skim. So we're also trained to recognize that stuff on the right-hand side of the screen is typically advertising. And also, if you're a Western alphabet reader, you tend to read from top to bottom and from left to right, which means that when you eye track people looking at a website page, they tend to pay more attention to the top and more attention to the left-hand side than they do to the bottom right. This F-shape pattern. This implies, obviously, but it's supported by scientific data and eye tracking studies, that the thing you put at the top, the banner, the headline, whatever, and the key subheadings are the most important things for the structure of the page. Next important understanding is they don't read every word on the page in that you publish it. I've often said this, that people read website pages like a child skipping around on hot sand on a beach, jumping from one thing to another, skipping sections. Every subheading is an anchor point, and every subheading is the gateway, the key to, are they going to read the next thing, right? And if they're not interested or they don't find it useful, they're just going to skip. It's also important that the heading and the subheadings down the page tell the story of the page, so that even if someone just scans through that, they still come away with an understanding of the page. And by the way, that's also important for large language models and SEO. If you can get the content of the page as treating the subheadings as a synopsis, that's a useful guide to AI understanding. And lastly, if you ever read a news article on the BBC, you'll notice now, because I'm telling you, you might not notice before, it's almost all one sentence paragraphs. Each sentence has to do work on its own. It has to be short and punchy and clear. This has been true for as long as I've been talking about this, 20 plus years. They've really thought about it. If you've got great blocks of text, especially if they're full width, you're making it very hard for people to digest that information. It's not a magazine, it's a website, and people engage with it differently. There are things that make copy on a website harder to engage with, less memorable, less credible, less interesting, less persuasive. And a lot of websites fail on one of these or more axes. So the first thing is jargon. So if you're using your language to describe your products and services, unless it's unpacked and explained, and sometimes it's quite useful to have a little MacGuffin like the difference engine trademark, just to go, we have this thing, it's ours, read more, find out, it means this stuff. But if you're using a lot of jargon, you're going to put off people, even if they are potentially experts in the same field. Secondly, hype language. This is well known and understood to put people off or disengage people. So an industry-leading end-to-end solution, all this sort of waffle and hype. Vagueness is a very subtle but important destroyer of trust and engagement. So some people say might, could, would, should, these sorts of weasel words, performance of, around. The opposite of that is where you have very strong proof points, truth, data, information. So on our website, we're talking about the number of websites we've built or the number of words we've built. These are strong evidence points. And if you look at Apple's website, they make a nice, engaging claim. It's usually sort of written as a paradox or clever bit of copywriting, and underneath they go, this A18 processor has 200% the performance of last year's A17. And these things have tangibility, they have sort of truthiness about them. And lastly, it's as an old hand editor, copywriter, using passive sentences. The mat was sat on by the cat. Makes companies sound bureaucratic, evasive, and stiff. So if you can be direct, clear, specific, and factual online, that makes a significant difference to how the website and the copy is perceived. Up to 200%, according to Norman Nielsen Group. So if people are scanning through the website looking for information, and maybe they're giving you a couple of seconds, every piece of text has to earn its place. But most important, headlines, subheadlines, button text, anything that's sort of called out and more visible, because the physiology of the eye will be skip, 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 and it will land on more prominent elements. Yeah. Similarly, bullet points are very useful for the eye as anchor points, but if they're bullet points surrounded by or followed by long pieces of text, much less useful. Interestingly, BBC website rarely uses bullet points. They just use these one-sentence paragraphs. So we've written just to illustrate the point. This isn't like the world's best copywriting or telling you how to write stuff, but innovative end-to-end solutions that empower. That's lots of jargon and hype. Whereas we help B2B tech companies generate more qualified leads. Very clear, right? What do you do? What's the output? What's the benefit for me? Similarly, our experienced professionals, decades of experience, also very self-important, and instead we've built more than 115 now for Articulate, more than 120 B2B tech websites. Very clear, nice bit of data, evidence, trust building, confidence there. Okay. So if you're watching this now or watching the recording later, what do you do about it? Well, let's focus on some short-term quick wins, and then perhaps some areas of expanded and sustained effort to further optimize it. There are some quick wins and high impact opportunities, and I don't think it's helpful to let we're going to do a big redesign next year, put off making small changes now. I think one of the failure modes for websites generally is to treat them as events. We did our new website last year, we're doing a new website project next year, rather than continuous ongoing processes of improvement, ideally data driven. So I've already talked about doing a quick and dirty usability study with friends, families, or loved ones, and also trying to look at your own website through fresh eyes yourself. Here are some things also that can help in half a day or less. The hero section rewrite, and you can try 2 or 3 different versions and pick one. Typically the one you write third or fourth will be the best. Usually the first one or second one just sort of gets the juices flowing. Being clearer about who you help and specifying that. And I often think about this as a golfer, which I am not, aims to get the ball on the green, and they're very happy if it goes in the hole. So who you help, you can say, look, the bullseye for us is this kind of audience, person, company, customer, but we also will take these sorts of customers. And people are very afraid of being that specific because they think when they do it, they're going to be alienating or ruling people out. And what we found, at least at Articulate and also for our clients, is the more specific you are, you get more of what you want, but you don't lose the other collateral drive-by potential customers. They still look at that and they go, well, yes, okay, Articulate does lots of health tech companies, but we're a B2B tech company, and what they do can also help us. It's additive, not exclusive. Okay, so that's a side point about who we help. Try and surface the social proof, like the confirming case studies, references, and examples. Try rewriting the CTAs to be more specific, and even better, make them actually go to something that has some bottom of funnel value. And adding internal links for the next best step that aren't just to the contact page, so that people have a sort of navigation. So you might have we do this for these people, and if you're in this category, this is a really interesting article, and if you're in this category, this is a really interesting article. So once you get beyond the quick wins, there are lots of opportunities for further optimization and improvement. But if you start with the page structure and the overall site information architecture, that can often yield very high returns for relatively small inputs of copywriting and time. Fixing your copy and making sure that your copy is kind of optimized for what people's search intents and needs are, and maybe you've got advert specific landing pages or page variants, or if you're using HubSpot Smart Content, so you recognize somebody coming in from a particular ad campaign and you show them something on your homepage that's different from what you show other people. Fixing the content before you try and spend more money to get more people to it can be high leverage. You can get better click-through rates, better conversion, cheaper costs per click just by getting the copy better. Fixing your conversion paths, thinking about how people journey through the site and how you get them to the next action, the engagement point, is better than it's better to do before you start spending money on generating more traffic, more people coming through that funnel. Fix the leaky bucket, and making sure that you have good measurement and tracking. I think there's a real danger of over obsessing about micro data that you can go get on investigation, and actually the more important thing, which is looking at trends and where people are coming from and conversion rates and things like that. There's the data that you report on every week and the data you can go find out if you need to diagnose something. HubSpot does a pretty good job of both. We rarely find that we need Google Analytics, but people are sort of obsessed about really complicated analytics before they actually are tracking anything, that any experiments or interventions that make a difference. Anyway, again, slight tangent there. So almost out of time. We have a webinar coming up in a couple of weeks about presentations. It's actually also quite relevant to website copy. The behavioral science of exceptional web presentations. Short version is use fewer bullets. Joanna, my colleague, is presenting that, and I've had a preview of that as part of the team, and it's fascinating. Highly recommended. You can see all our upcoming and pre-recorded webinars at articulatemarketing.com webinars. Again, if any of this resonates with you, do get in touch. Love to have a chat. And that is everything. And yes, I finished on time. Yay me. All right, fantastic. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you very much.